What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Borough Sports Podcast. I am your host, Rick Guerino, and we can all breathe a sigh of relief that we will not be seeing another Boston championship this year. Everyone take a deep breath. We did it. As everyone outside of the New England area wisely and correctly predicted, including myself, the New England Patriots faced a real team and got blown out on the biggest stage. And that should be to the surprise of absolutely no one. I think even the Pats fans knew, but they really didn't want to admit it, that they were going to get their shit pumped for 4 straight quarters. But they had to have that false sense of confidence because, they're just used to winning everything and everything going their way. And we finally had something that hasn't gone Boston's way. Probably since the 2019 Blues beating the Boston Bruins, I don't think we've had a single bad Boston sports moment that has really shook that town to its core the way that this did. The Patriots are not used to losing in the Super Bowls. Tom Brady is not here. Bill Belichick is not here. This is not your mom and dad's Patriots. This is not your millennial cousin's Patriots. The Seattle Seahawks are your Super Bowl champions. Sam Darnold is a Super Bowl champion. And let's break it down. Was the game a little boring to start off? Yeah, I'd say so. But the first 3 quarters were an absolute defensive clinic by both teams. We have to acknowledge the fact that it might not have been the most entertaining game, but if you were watching the defensive side of the ball, it was an absolute masterclass in game plans for each team. The Seahawks, however, were actually able to move the ball into Patriot territory, giving them the 9-0 lead going into halftime. And Jason Myers probably has a very good case for why he should have been the Super Bowl MVP. Because this game wasn't close, and he was a major reason part of it. He was absolutely nailing 5 field goals today. Going into half, you're figuring, especially if you're in New England, hey, we're going to make some adjustments. We're only down 2 scores. It's 9-0. We're going to be able to come back in this game. And that's where you would be wrong. The Seahawks are the clear most complete team in the NFL. And they showed exactly why tonight. The game was never really close. Before the game really broke open, Jason Myers tacked on 2 more field goals, giving me a total of 5 for the game. He hit the over of 3.5 just by himself. I don't think Borregales even got on the field to attempt a field goal. I'm pretty sure he didn't. I don't think the Patriots were in a position to kick a field goal the entire time because they had to keep scoring touchdowns. In getting more into that, the Patriots struggled mightily on offense. By the end of the game, Drake Maye had been sacked 6 times with a fumble lost, 2 interceptions, and one of those was the game-sealing pick 6 to Nwosu, and that was the nail in the coffin. That was it. The game was over from there. And to be fair to Drake Maye, he barely had any time to throw. Will Campbell, I know he was the 4th overall pick last year, and he's probably has some time to develop, but dude, that was a poor showing. And I know it's Seattle's defense and they're the best in the league, but you did not protect your quarterback at all last night, man. Those short arms of yours, they really got in the way. 14 pressures from Will Campbell tonight by himself. That's abysmal. He could be the worst left tackle in the league at the moment, unless he develops into something even average by next year. And that's going to be a problem for Drake Maye if they're whiffing on a 4th overall pick like that. They might just have to move him inside to guard. He might have different footwork that works better to work as a guard instead of a tackle in the NFL, but we're not going to know that unless the Patriots go back to the drawing board over the season. But I don't want to harp too much on the Patriots and what they didn't do as opposed to what the Seahawks did. I will say, before I move on completely, Christian Gonzalez, you proved me wrong, man. I thought you were going to get torched by JSN all game long, and you balled out. You were the one positive for the Patriots that entire game yesterday. You had the game of your life, and you did everything in your power to keep the Seahawks off the board. JSN only had 4 catches for 27 yards on 10 targets. You were not letting anything get past you, and you played very admirably. It's a shame that the rest of your team didn't play as well as you did, because you might have actually stood a chance. The Seahawks, though, they were just better straight up in every phase of the game. They neutralized the Patriots offense, forced them to make costly turnovers that ultimately decided the game. The special teams, we already talked about Jason Myers and his 5 field goals. The punter for Seattle had 3 punts that ended up within the 6-yard line, keeping the Patriots from advancing the ball anywhere close to the 50 the majority of the game, and allowed the defense to ball out. The Pats defense, they were good, but they were not good enough to keep Seattle off the board for long, man. Sam Darnold, he did everything you needed for a Super Bowl quarterback to do in this game, man. He didn't have a turnover, not just this game, but the entire playoffs. Let me say that again. He didn't have a single turnover, not one, the entire playoffs of 2026. He played perfect football yesterday. He played perfect football for the playoffs as a whole. That type of play, I don't care how many touchdowns or passing yards he did not or did have in the Super Bowl yesterday. Keeping the football safe and protecting the rock is exactly how you win Super Bowls. And Sam Darnold couldn't have been better. He made some risky throws, but they were either complete or knocked down. They were not ending up in Patriot defender hands. And in comparison, Drake Maye set an NFL record with the most turnovers commit by a quarterback in one postseason. And I know that's sort of a backhanded stat, because it's technically like, well, the reason he was able to commit so many turnovers is because they kept winning games. And I get that. But eventually, when you're making that many turnovers, it's going to catch up to you, because he had 2 costly ones today. The pick six and the fumble recovered by the Seahawks, which ultimately decided the game. I mean, credit to the Patriots for even getting this far. We all talked about your cupcake schedule and your cakewalk of playoff opponents that you had to face to get here. But I've said it before. Drake Maye, you're easy to root for. You're a good person. You're not hateable yet. I don't think you're ever going to be. You're just genuinely a good person. Mike Vrabel is just a purebred stallion football guy, man. Before the game started and seeing that the Pats were a 4.5-point underdog, I thought that was the only edge that Vrabel needed to get his guys fired up to be able to compete, cover, and probably win. If you had put money on Patriots money line, I would not have blamed you one bit. With the disrespect of Tom Brady not getting into the Hall of Fame unanimously, with Bill Belichick not making it into the Hall of Fame this year, it just felt like this was the perfect storm for the Patriots to pull out the "oh, no one believes in us" card, and we're just going to go get it all done on our own. And for once in our lives, it worked out in the opposite favor. It has just been a shit couple weeks for New England, and I'm enjoying those tears. I kept receipts on everyone that was commenting on all of my posts, all you New England fans that were talking all that shit, saying how I'm just a hater and I'm just jealous of the Patriots' success and that the Patriots are going to blow the Seahawks out. Care to update me on what happened? Do you want to make another excuse as to why you guys lost? Or are you just going to go 6 rings, 6 rings, like you make fun of us Yankee fans for doing with the 27 rings? I get it. You're salty. And yes, I am absolutely being a hater, but you guys make it very easy to hate. Thank God your quarterback and your head coach are not insufferable pricks, because that would have made it a lot more enjoyable to hate. And I wouldn't feel as bad as I do for Drake Maye, because I do think he's eventually going to win a Super Bowl for you guys. And that's going to be miserable for me. But again, I'll be happy for Drake Maye. No one else. At the end of the day, the Seahawks were just a better team. That roster is stacked. The Seahawks general manager, John Snyder, should be absolutely proud of what he has put together. As a Minnesota Vikings fan, you have to be sick to your stomach that you chose J.J. McCarthy. Or I should say you didn't choose. Your front office chose J.J. McCarthy over Sam Darnold after winning you 14 games last year. And then because he had a couple bad games, you decided to move on from him completely. One could say that if the Vikings were one Sam Darnold away, they could have been a playoff team instead of whatever J.J. McCarthy and their gaggle of backup quarterbacks led them to this year. In other news, in other sports, welcome back Paul Goldschmidt. Again, Brian Cashman, we're really differentiating our roster year over year. You're really driving that point home, man. Thanks. Honestly, I'm fine with this. Not a move I would have made. Paul Goldschmidt is really getting up there in age, but as long as Rice is the primary starting first baseman, and we're getting Rice to see as many lefties as possible. We know his lefty-righty splits are not great, but if we want him to be our starting everyday first baseman, he needs to get as much reps from the left side of the arm slot as possible to see that type of pitch coming his way, because we know he's not good against lefties, but he crushes righties. And we need to get him to be a more well-rounded hitter, especially in the playoffs when we know he can do damage. If he's going to be able to see a left-handed pitcher, we need him in the lineup because he's just so freaking good at swinging that bat, man. I think he's primed for a breakout year, and I'm glad that Paul Goldschmidt is going to be there to mentor him and maybe get him a little bit better on the defensive side of first base because we really need him there. But it should really be Ben Rice seeing 70% of the reps at first base with Paul Goldschmidt coming in to face the occasional lefty because he does hit them so well. Or being a pinch hit bat off the bench or a defensive replacement that is also capable offensively. We also today traded for a utility infielder named Matt Schumann. I've never heard of him before, but apparently he is an excellent defender that can play all over the field. And I'm a big fan of this move, especially in late game situations where we need a defensive replacement if we're going the full run prevention route. However, his bat is not exactly where you'd want it to be. And by that, I mean it's a sub 200 batting average with barely any home runs. The patented Brian Cashman buy low candidate that they think they're going to be able to just fix something on this guy. I'm not expecting this guy to improve anywhere near putting his average close to 210. But if they can improve his walk rate, it's about 10% right now. If they can get that up to like a 15%. And if he comes in and plays a good replacement fielder, I think the Yankees can work with that. I mean, pitchers and catchers report on Thursday. Baseball season's basically here. And then the full roster on the 16th of February. We're going to have baseball back in our lives very quickly, especially with the World Baseball Classic coming up next month. That's going to be electric. The promos have been going great. Aaron Judge looks great in the USA uniform. I think Team USA, shout out Team USA, is ready to actually take that title back from Japan. Japan has Shohei Ohtani and not too many other guys that are currently in the MLB. It shouldn't be the game that we saw a couple of years ago. I think USA should win this tournament pretty handily. I wanted to break this down with the Giants hiring their new defensive coordinator, Denard Wilson. He seems like he could be a decent hire. I really don't know too much about him, although the overall sentiment is that he took a bad Titans defense and was able to turn them into a decent unit. They were not awful last year and the year before that, which is a lot more than what Shane Bowen can say he did with a pretty decent Giants unit that made less than the sum of its parts. And then we hired Matt Nagy. And I don't know how to feel about this. As a head coach in Chicago, he ran himself off the team because of how poorly the Bears were, leading to them getting Caleb Williams as the #1 overall pick. Now he just came from a Chiefs team that for the first time, it seems like almost 10 years, they haven't made the playoffs when he was the offensive coordinator. And I know the Chiefs were not super healthy this year. They didn't have their best roster in terms of quality compared to other years. But when you have Pat Mahomes as your quarterback, you should be competing for the playoffs every year. And the Chiefs were not even close to contention by the end of the season. They were done by like week 15. I can't remember exactly when they were eliminated, but their season was basically over as soon as Pat Mahomes tore his ACL, but it was over even before that. Pat Mahomes at that point was only playing because the Chiefs had a very small chance of making the playoffs. No thanks to Matt Nagy, because their offense just didn't look that great this year. They really didn't have any explosive plays, and I guess that comes from them not having a Tyreek figure. Rashee Rice was out for the first 4 games of the season, and he got hurt towards the end. So they were never able to get rolling. Maybe we're able to put something together with a healthy Dart, a healthy Cam Scatterboot, a healthy Malik Neighbors, and what seems to be our best offensive line in a long time, especially if we do end up with Tyler Linderbaum. But I wanted to break down on how close each the Jets and the Giants are in terms of getting close to a blueprint of what the Seahawks have going on. Right now, the Jets on offense. You have Garrett Wilson. That's about it. If only the Jets had a guy like Sam Darnold that they could, plug and play into their QB position. But I don't know where you find guys like that. The Giants offense, we have an electric young quarterback who will be in his second year, much grown compared to what he was at the start of the season. I think he's learned a lot. In Jackson Dart, being a leader of men, as well as what it takes to be a successful quarterback in this league. He took a lot of lumps this year. He was a bit reckless with how he ran the ball whenever he had an RPO designed up for him. However, he does typically take care of the ball. He's not throwing bad interceptions. Outside of that one in Denver, which he's still a rookie, those were going to happen. I'm not super mad about that. I think Jackson Dart has plenty of upside, and he's shown that he's going to be a star in this league. We have Malik Neighbors once he comes back from his ACL tear. God willing, he's making a full recovery for his ACL injury. I'm hoping he's getting rid of that cane that he was rumored to still have. He should be ready to go for training camp in being able to practice in full. We have an electric running back in Cam Scatterboot. This dude is awesome. He is not exactly Ken Walker in terms of speed, but he could be Ken Walker in terms of his brutality and how he runs straight downfield, and he will murder you if you get in front of him when he has the ball in his hands. I'm really hoping that this ankle injury he's recovering from does not affect him for the rest of his career. Typically, we've seen running backs that have an ankle fracture where it's literally going sideways. It typically tends to affect them. But Cam Scatterboot seems like the type of guy that doesn't feel any pain. And he probably would have tried to play through that ankle the rest of that game if he wanted to. I think the Giants legitimately told him, no, you cannot play on that. He probably would have tried to keep playing with his ankle literally dangling from its socket. And finally, like we just said, we have a competent offensive line again. And I'm begging Joe Shane to go out and sign Tyler Linderbaum so we can strengthen it that much more. I don't know who we're hiring as our OC. If we've hired an OC yet, I have to look into that. I'm a bit upset that Carmen Brasillo is not being retained. I do think, however, John Harbaugh is going to be able to hire someone very competent. I've heard that we're looking at someone from Michigan to take over as our offensive line coach, which I'd be okay with because Michigan tends to have some of the better offensive lines in college football, especially in the last couple of years. Say what you want about them, but they put out some hosses. In defense, the Jets, you have a couple first-round picks that you might be able to replenish. The losses of Sauce and Quinnen Williams, but other than that, you're returning the same defensive unit that didn't that didn't force a single, not one interception over 17 games of football. So there's that. The Giants, we have Dexter Lawrence, who it seemed like he was playing hurt this entire season. I'm not ready to give up on Dexter Lawrence just yet, but should he return to form with an actual defensive coordinator that knows how to use him, I think he's going to be, again, one of the more dangerous players in the league. He might not be his old dominant self, but he's going to be at least 75% of what he was. We have Brian Burns coming off a Defensive Player of the Year worthy season, which even in Shane Bowen's defense is probably more case to give it to him than anyone else, because I don't know how anyone could succeed in Shane Bowen's defense. So Brian Burns is very, very good, and he's going to continue being very, very good. Abdul Carter coming off a successful rookie year where he's had a good end of the season, especially after Shane Bowen was fired. It seemed like Abdul Carter is being deployed much better and used a lot more effectively. So I'm not worried about him there. We do need help in our secondary. We don't have anyone like Emmanuel or Devin Witherspoon or Tariq Woolen. The Seahawks defense right now it's the Legion of Boom 2.0. When you have dudes that are 6'5" and can run 4.4s and are athletic freaks like Emmanuel, it's tough to replicate that. Like, those guys are one of ones in the NFL. There's not many players that are able to replicate that type of physique and athleticism. So I'm hoping that Caleb Downs can come in and be that type of guy in the secondary that will be the captain of the defense and be that ball hawk we need if we can trade down to about 6 or 7 and have him fall to us there. Special teams. Both of these teams right now for the Jets or the Giants are an embarrassment. I don't really know the Jets too well, but I have to assume it's bad because I don't recall anything positive happening on the Jets special teams this year at all. I'd assume it's in the same category or stratosphere as the defense where it's just abysmal. And the Giants, they need a guy that can just come in and actually make a kick from 50 plus with some sort of regularity. Maybe an actual punter that can kick the ball more than 40 yards with regularity. Not a bunch of charity cases from the International Pathway Program and the corpse of Graham Gano. Deonte Banks might actually end up being a decent punt returner for the Giants, but considering he was a first-round pick, that sucks. I think we should be getting a little bit more positional value out of him. Maybe he can succeed better in Denard Wilson's system than he did with Shane Bowen and regain some of that positive momentum he had coming into his rookie season where he did play well. But he's still not a Rashid Shaheed in terms of punt returning and kick returning. That man is a one of one. Again, coaching Jets, yikes. Hiring Frank Reich as your OC is specifically for when the Jets start the season 0-6 and Aaron Glenn inevitably gets fired, even though his roster is garbage. And it's going to be a response to keep the fans from completely rioting and showing up to the stadium. They're going to need a pound of flesh. And Aaron Glenn is going to be that sacrificial lamb. And then Frank Reich next in line, and so on and so forth. If you're a head coach at this point, I don't know how you want, or if you're a head coaching candidate, I'm sorry. I don't know how you even consider the Jets on your short list. I think I would rather go be an OC for anybody else in the league or a DC for anyone else in the league before I accept a head coaching position for the Jets, because that's just a lost cause. Again, Harbaugh as the head coach, you already know how I feel about that. We've been jumping up and down in joy for ever since that happened. However, again, I'm a bit wary on the coordinators. Denard Wilson, he did make that Titans defense look serviceable. And they only had like 1 or 2 guys that were even capable of being something decent on that team. Matt Nagy, we already went over. I'm cautiously apprehensive. He's shown he can be a competent OC in this league before, but last year left a lot to be desired. However, I am pretty pumped that we got Greg Roman as the run game coordinator. He's actually decent. I was going to be upset if he was going to be the OC because he was responsible for the Chargers' very bland offense, but he was still able to make their run game decent behind the worst offensive line in football. So if we can pair Scottaboo and Tyrone Tracy with that type of mindset, I think the Giants are going to have a sneaky good run game next year. Front offices, this is where the teams are the most helpless. Jets, when you have Woody Johnson sticking his nose in every little thing, you're never going to have a GM that can actually come in and do anything good with the team. And John Harbaugh, thankfully, he has just as much say in building his roster as Joe Shane does now. We need Joe Shane to just figure out how to actually get a kicker on the team first before we put him in charge of actually doing anything else. Get us some cap space, get us some draft picks, and let it be done. Let John Harbaugh call the shots in terms of roster building. So when we break it all down, the Giants are clearly much closer to the Seahawks than the Jets are at this point in time. However, the Giants clearly have plenty of ways to go. They need to plug a lot of holes on their defense. Joe Shane, just don't draft terribly. Give us at least through round 4 of usable players, which would be a lot more than what you have given us in the past, outside of maybe this past year. And then maybe we can finagle some cap space back. The Knicks have won 9 out of their last 10 games. They look pretty freaking good outside of the one game that they lost, which was the most concerning as they got shit pumped by the Detroit Pistons, the only competition that the Knicks currently have in the East at this point in time. And it's their second straight loss to them of 30 or more points, which if you're not concerned about that, I mean, I don't know what more you have to see. The game was competitive for maybe 10 minutes. And it was just about the worst game of the Knicks season so far. Jalen Brunson, I think you just need to flush it, bro. 4 for 20. You're better than that. You know that. And we rebounded against the Celtics yesterday or Saturday when the game was. I forget. But Detroit's a problem, man. Detroit's really freaking good. And we just traded for Jose Alvarado, who I think fits the Knicks really well. He's great defensively. He's hard-nosed. He's fired up all the time. He's from New York. We didn't have to give up too much draft capital to get him. But I don't think it's going to be enough for us contending for a championship. It was the only move we made of any substance. He's going to come in and he's going to be good. He looked good against the Celtics yesterday in that win where we blew him out pretty handily. I think the Knicks are going to have to figure out the Detroit Pistons a lot sooner than later, because I don't love the idea of playing them in a 7-game series. Granted, OG, Anunoby, and Karl Anthony Towns were not playing in this latest Detroit game, but you would have at least loved to see the Knicks keep it competitive, and it was not. It was a blowout, basically from the first whistle. I don't know, man. Just keep it rolling. The Knicks' schedule is a gauntlet coming up. We discussed that last episode. Just keep stacking wins. That win against Detroit, that win against Denver the other night in overtime when Mikal nearly blew the game for us at the end. That was an electric win. And then we handily beat the crap out of Boston yesterday. That was nice to see. So keep it rolling, Knicks. Keeping it on MSG teams. How about the St. John's Red Storm in a victory over the number 3 ranked UConn Huskies? I mean, that was an absolute banger of a game in the Garden. The atmosphere kicked ass. I mean, Johnny's handled business, kept it tied going into half, and then they pulled away as the game went on. The final score was not reflective of how close the game was, but that was a convincing victory. The atmosphere, again, was electric. Gus Johnson being on the call helped. Watch that. Gus Johnson being on the call. He is just so awesome, man. He is my favorite announcer for college basketball. He was hyped up the entire time. He made that feel like a true March Madness Big East title type game. And there's not a better commentator for the sport other than maybe Kevin Harlan. I know, Iron Eagle, you are the heir apparent to Jim Nantz for March Madness. But Kevin Harlan and Gus Johnson, I just wish we could get those two in a broadcast together. That would have me jumping through walls. Zuby Ejiofor and Hopkins were the spark plugs for the Johnnies all game, being the main answer to any punch that UConn had. This game was a straight-up war, and both teams really deserve credit for how they played. I think this is going to be the matchup that we get in mid-March for the Big East tournament final, unless Villanova upsets one of them. I think that's really the only contender in the Big East to do so. If you asked me 2 weeks ago, before Seton Hall effectively ended their season, I would say that Seton Hall might be a candidate to do so, but I don't want to talk about them today. They've made me so sad. again, we better see this as a Big East tournament final. I think St. John's and UConn have one more game to play in Storrs, Connecticut. But if this is our Big East final, that is going to be a banger of a game because this one absolutely rocked. And we're going to get more into college basketball talk as the calendar gets deeper into February. It really is so wide open, man. Every conference feels like they have a true contender that can win a national title. With obviously the Big East, we have UConn and St. John's. The Big 12 has Arizona, Houston, Kansas, Iowa State. There's like 6 more that could be a tournament team at any point. That conference is stacked from top to bottom. Michigan, Illinois, Michigan State in the Big 10. I might be forgetting some people there. Duke and UNC at the top of the ACC, like it should be every year. That game Saturday night was a banger. I'm glad UNC won that. John Shire, a.k.a. John Cryer. No one actually knows if your coach actually got hit in the face, but knowing that you are coming from the Coach K lineage, it wouldn't surprise me if you made that up because there are still yet to be any photos or videos released of that actually happening. I think you're just a sore loser like every Duke team, anytime they lose, making it about anything but the game and then just outside factors. Just take the loss. You blew one of the largest leads against UNC that you've had in the last 25 years. Anyway, and in the SEC, you got Bama, Tennessee, Vandy, the list goes on. This tournament is going to be awesome. Last year, it felt like only like the top 4 seeds really had a chance between Duke, Houston, Florida, and I think there's one more in there. Auburn, yeah, there's Auburn and Johnny Broom's 28-year-old ass. I think this tournament is going to have much more parity behind it. We might have a lot more upsets and a lot more closely contested games compared to last year where it was only blowouts really in the first 2 rounds. And then the Sweet 16, the competition slowly got better, but there really wasn't many upsets there. I think we're going to be having chaos from the first whistle of March Madness this year. And it's going to be good to see again because the last couple of tournaments have really lacked that chaos that makes March Madness so great. We really haven't seen a true Cinderella since St. Peter's and Shaheen Holloway went all the way to the Elite 8. I would love to see another mid-major tournament like maybe Miami of Ohio. You get someone like that to go far into the tournament. Yeah, man, college basketball is in a really good spot. It's going to be a fun watch for the rest of the year. Lastly, 2 things. Shout out to Chris Gotterup, pride of Monmouth County, New Jersey, winning the Waste Management Open this past weekend. I know it was a little bit controversial with those fans potentially heckling Hideki Matsuyama in his backswing on the last hole and in the playoff. I can't confirm or deny whether that happened. I'm just happy for Chris, man. He's been on fire to start the season. He's been representing New Jersey and the Jersey Shore well. And it feels cool to have a pro athlete dominating golf from where I grew up and representing the sport so well. He should have been on the Ryder Cup team last year. And I think he's going to be in serious consideration for next year when it happens. And lastly, go Team USA in the Winter Olympics, man. Let's keep bringing home medals. Shout out to Lindsey Vonn. I hope you're going to make a speedy recovery after the nasty fall that you took yesterday. It sucks. It really sucks. But the fact that you went out fresh off an ACL tear, not even a week ago, and tried to compete at the highest level you can is just so badass. Like, I stubbed my toe and I'm out of anything for 3 to 5 business weeks. So when you see humans that are able to go and do stuff like that and really just test the absolute limit of what the human body can accomplish, Lindsey Vonn, you've had a legendary career. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You're one of the best Olympians ever. Thank you for representing the USA so well. Anyways, thanks. That's all I got for y'all today. And see y'all next time on Borough Sports Podcast. Like, subscribe, comment. Y'all know the drill. See you later. Peace.